Hola, and welcome back to the Live Podcast, where we learn, inspire, flourish, and evolve together on the journey to our best, most authentic selves. I'm your host, Dr. C, and today I'm so excited to be joined by Mary Petto, a vibrational energy coach, rapid turmoil resolution specialist, and the author of The Family Guide to the Law of Attraction, a sought-after transformational speaker and mindfulness meditation teacher. Mary's private sessions and corporate presentations deliver immediate shifts. And we're going to be talking all about rapid turmoil resolution. And we'll be looking at it through the lens of emotional and spiritual wellness. Mary made a massive pivot from the high pressure boardrooms of Merrill Lynch to becoming what she calls a transformation ninja. She challenges the idea that healing takes years, suggesting that for the high functioning leader, the problem isn't in your mindset, but in your energy loops. Hola, Mary. Welcome to the Live Podcast. So excited to have you here with us today.
Very excited to be here, Dr. C.
Awesome. I know you're at the Jersey Shore, and just like I'm in upstate New York, so it's very cold outside, but we're going to warm things up with our conversation. How about that?
Sounds great.
Awesome. So let's jump right in. So Mary, most of my listeners are high achievers who are used to solving problems with their brains. And they believe healing requires analyzing the past and endless talk therapy. Can you explain the science of why talking it out doesn't always reach the root of our stress?
Yes. So the perspective that I have with rapid resolution therapy, or I like to call it rapid turmoil resolution, is that where we experience our distress, our stuckness, our behaviors, senses, our emotions are being caused by a place different from that. So while we are experiencing them in real time and talking about them, having these conscious conversations, it's not making progress because the problem is being generated from this other place, specifically from inner mind. And so if we want to look at it kind of rationally, as we're all rational, high functioning people, if talking about it was productive for those really deep-seated issues, then it really wouldn't be difficult for most people to feel good. We'd all be walking around, talking it out, having somebody say, hey, that was in the past, or get over it. You can stop thinking about that. You can let it go, or, there's plenty of fish in the sea. And then we'd say, oh, you're right. And then we'd move on, and then everything would be okay. The reason why problems persist is because they're being caused by this other place where you're having a conscious conversation, but the message isn't getting to the root of the problem.
Amazing. So you mentioned in our planning chat that the thinking mind, the beta brain, is actually where the problem lives, not the solution. So what is happening in the subconscious when we are stuck in these loops?
So it's a blip in the way mind is processing information. You might even want to think about it as a record. For those who remember what a record is, a record getting stuck, and it kind of just gets stuck in that repeating mode, right? Or you can think about it as a hose with a kink in it. And so instead of events, conversations, incidents, moving from having happened to just being placed in memory where you can recall it and talk about it with neutrality, it stays stuck in the place where it hasn't processed. And in that spot is where it will think whatever happened is still happening, or is about to happen, or just happened. So it will throw up emotions, thoughts, behavior, sensations to get you to prevent it from happening or have happened, right?
Wow. Yeah.
So that is what is happening when we're stuck in a loop, that, that piece, that sympathetic nervous system piece that throws up the survivor mentality, you've got to survive, is stuck as though it just happened. So
Yeah.
that's the loop that we're
Mm.
talking about.
Yeah. It makes perfect sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to inspire the listeners who feel stuck in the corporate grind. You were a asset manager and you also worked at Merrill Lynch, high stakes environments, right? So how did you go from the pressure cooker to discovering vibrational energy and rapid turmoil resolution? What was the turning point for you?
Well, it started with that vibrational energy component where commonly known as the law of attraction or the law of vibration, which basically says that with a clear mind and solid intention and clearly embodying that future result that you're looking for, be it relationships, your health, financial abundance, success in your job,
Mm,
whatever that is, or a good conversation, even like those sort of micro moments, having a successful meeting. What I discovered while I was in that environment is that I really had tremendous control over my outcomes.
mm,
And it was an incredible quantum leap vehicle for my success, for my raises, for my promotions, for my moving to jobs and literally quantum leaping from an average salary to an amazing salary for my age, right? Just getting what I wanted, the date, the apartment, whatever it was.
mm,
And so, boy, did I want to share that. So, I mean, there were some steps in between where I had forgotten about that. I was dealing with anxiety, then it got brought back to me. I started teaching. I started going into environments where people wanted to learn how to be in the right place at the right time, have those good conversations, just kind of let intuition flow through. And
yeah.
it really was a banner time, and I still do a lot of that, of course. And I wrote a book even, The Family Guide to the Law of Attraction, which, by family in this container, we're really talking about learning together with your tribe, with your coworkers, with your book club, with your basketball team, because that really helps that vibrational component, helps people remember that they can overcome whatever they think is happening to them or feeling victim of a situation or, the way things have to be, right? To really
Yeah.
be able to quantum leap out of that. But when I was getting people coming back to me saying, this isn't working, I'm definitely stuck. Why isn't this very simple process, this natural law of the universe, why am I not able to leverage it? Which led me to discovering that your vibrational energy that you're putting out there, that we're really talking about when we're talking about getting to experience whatever it is that you want, is so dependent not just on your conscious thinking, but also on what's happening unconsciously. Because
Mm,
we're molecular beings with electromagnetic frequencies running through
yeah.
us, and that's what makes this magic happen. But if you think of a glacier where you're seeing maybe or an iceberg, you see maybe the pretty mountain of ice, but boy, is there a tremendous amount below the surface.
Absolutely.
And that is, if you are stuck or dealing with some trauma or even just what we might commonly call limiting beliefs, that is going to send out a different frequency that than your conscious mind thinks it wants to send out, right? It's blurring it, or even worse, could be sending out the opposite frequency that you want. That led me into studying the mind, studying inner mind, studying the incredible skill of mindfulness and what that means, and then taking it a step further into this RRT field, rapid resolution therapy, this coaching mechanism I use to clear even long-term issues that have been going on with people for years. I just provide them with a life-changing conversation where we can clear that out, unkink the hose, and not only get things back to feeling good, but now back in an environment where we really want success, however you define it, to send
Yeah.
out that intention again and get back what it is that you want out of life.
Wow. Wow. So you mentioned seeing, clients who are like emotionally exhausted but high functioning. Can you share a story of a client who looked fine on paper but was suffering
Yeah,
internally and what their
sure.
transformation looked like?
Yeah, if I can keep it maybe in this corporate environment,
Sure.
as an example, um, I'd like to give an example of a woman who I had a session with. She was extremely talented. She was always the first to get the raises. It wasn't me. And always the first to get the promotions because she was so good at her job. But her stress levels were intense, and she was tense at home, and her family felt that she wasn't happy. She couldn't let anything go at work. She was just There was just never any satisfaction, even with verbal recognition and gratitude coming from those around her and on her team. What we uncovered was that her emotions and behaviors were coming from a protective mechanism in her mind, connecting all these various aspects of her job to life or death survival. And so that was coming out in the sense that she had to deliver early and above and beyond expectation all the time. And it also led to her not delegating and fully
Mm,
embracing a team mentality. So, and here's the thing, right? The truth is that her talent and skills spoke for themselves. So if she gave 80% or 90% of her capacity instead of 150%, she would still be well above the performance of anyone else's capability around her. But that extra 60, 70% was draining her and being caused not by devotion to her projects, but by a fear response coming from inner mind, which of course was also creating physical distress on top of everything
yes.
else. She did have health issues as well. So, back to our session, by the end of the session, of course, she was more relaxed. That's always the first thing. Oh my gosh, I feel so good. Okay, that's great. But, how do we take this, right? How do you engage with the world now after your session? So back into her daily life, her perspective had totally shifted. Her blood pressure went down, and she found that she was actually able to tap into much more creative thinking at work, and her approach to work, just completely shifted. So with the actual incredible skills she already had, now without this leaky energy, this internal distress, she was open and the armor that she had built around her was gone,
Yeah.
right?
Wow.
Yeah, it was
That's
great.
amazing. That's amazing. It's amazing. And I'm contemplating what I'm hearing about. It just doesn't work because in my own consulting and in my own coaching, I get that a lot. It's not working. It's like there's time and commitment that you need to put into strategies, right? New techniques to really understand how you tweak them for yourself.
Mhm.
Because there are several techniques, there are several strategies, but you are a unique individual. So how do you use that technique to work for you, right? And how do you kind of tweak it so that it impacts you positively?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
amazing.
100%.
So thinking about, strategies, let's get practical. You use the term leaky energy to describe the unseen emotional drain. If a listener is feeling overwhelmed today, what is the first smallest practical step that they could take to stop the leak and get to a neutral baseline?
Yeah. Um, It's funny how the simplest things can create monumental shifts, right? And that's the beauty of mindfulness. The first thing to do with overwhelm is always try to get present and make peace with where you are.
Mm,
And I mean that in a literal sense too, where you are in your space, as well as where you are in your progress or your condition. And that starts with some beautiful deep breaths. um, I like a deep breath in, a little bit of a hold, and then a slow release. Some call it box breathing.
mhm.
Um, And you'll find some of this in my loop locator, which I can share about in a little bit, but ask yourself some questions. Questions kind of start to dissolve fear and overwhelm, right? Because it just becomes a process, an exchange. So ask yourself questions, inventory and identify what is actually making you feel overwhelmed.
Hmm.
Think about it. Is it a task list, a deadline, a conversation you had that didn't end well, or too much information coming at you, too many decisions and choices to make? Write them down because that gets your inner mind to stop causing all the items to keep coming forward on repeat.
Hmm.
It gives the idea to your nervous system that it's taken care of or it's on its way to be taken care of. And then you're on your way to making peace with where you are by inventorying these items. And with each item, then, after it's written down, ask yourself, is this really something to worry about? What would happen if it got turned in late? What would happen if I took two things off this list and pushed them down the road? Would there really be consequences? That conversation that ended badly that I have on repeat, is that my problem or the other person's problem?
Hmm. Yes.
And if I think it's my problem, is it really, or am I just being reactive? Does it really matter? The more you ask, the more inner mind feels it can relax. So, you just work it out on paper, then close out with another little bit of breath work or doing something that brings you joy for 5 minutes. And what you're doing is getting yourself resourced again. You've made peace with where you are. So you've unkinked that hose that's stuck, and now you can handle anything that was on that list of what was overwhelming you with a plum without it overwhelming you emotionally. Right now, you're smart again. That's what this sort of mindset, this mindfulness moment is all about, because you really can handle anything. And usually, the truth is, if you ask yourself, nothing is that monumental. It's just that inner mind, sympathetic nervous system throwing up sensations and emotions because it's attaching it to survival. So when you look at it practically and say, okay, we're going to handle this,
Yeah.
that all softens and you're back to being resourced again.
Wow. So you mentioned a specific tool called the loop locator. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure, I'd love to talk about the loop locator. So, and um, if you've been spiraling in anger, grief, heartbreak, shame, fear, your nervous system isn't sabotaging you. It's just stuck in this loop, right, that we've talked about. And so the loop locator is a guide that helps you find where that loop lives and what to do about it. And it will help you find the signal your mind's been replaying and show you how we can clear it together.
Oh,
And
that's
that's
amazing.
that's a free tool, by the
That's
way.
amazing.
So yes, if your listeners are interested in it, it's on my well, you wouldn't find it on my website. It's a secret link. It's portablevisions.com/gift because it is a gift.
Oh, beautiful.
Mhm.
I appreciate that. So we'll definitely
Yeah,
have
yeah.
that in the show notes. I'm going to try that myself. Wow. Sounds like an amazing tool.
Yeah.
And a strategy to really get you to where, you can make some significant changes. So
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
amazing. So
Mhm.
we often try to plaster positive affirmations all over stress, right? Um, why does positive thinking fail when our nervous system is in survival mode? Why isn't manifesting enough?
Yeah. So, well, let me start by saying that positive thinking or visualizing a positive outcome is okay and absolutely can work when we aren't in distress.
Hmm.
Um, as a matter of fact, putting it on repeat with visuals like affirmations can actually be an effective way to get messages to inner mind. Um, and something that I talk about in all my training, all my classes with all my clients that are looking to manifest a different outcome is sometimes it's hard to get even to that positive thought. But I'd love to share this affirmation with people, which is everything always works out for me. And making the statement might not feel totally true, but you're not saying something specific. It's going to be okay. You're just saying everything always works out for me in this nice generic way. You could even do a physical signal. We talked about how we're electromagnetic frequencies, right? Just give a little wink up to the sky. Everything always works out for me. And what you're doing is starting to connect your mind, your inner mind, and the quantum field kind of all together where everything could work out. Now, that being said, that quick little manifesting tip, if it isn't working because you're fighting against that piece, that 95% below the waterline, like we talked about, it's that vibrational intention is not a match, like we said, for what your conscious mind is trying to uphold. And that's why we do the work we do, to clean out that residue that's sending out either the wrong intention or scrambling the frequency our conscious mind wants to get out there.
This is deep. Very deep. I love it. Okay, so thinking of like future vision, right? Evolving, looking forward. You promised significant healing in a single 90-minute session, and which is bold to make that statement.
I'm nothing if not bold.
I love it. We got to be bold in life. Paint the picture of the evolved client. Like once the root is finally cleared, what becomes possible for them professionally or personally that wasn't possible before?
Yeah, I mean, it really is incredible. And, these sessions do average about 90 minutes. Sometimes they're much shorter. But unlike, let's say, in a traditional coaching or therapy session, we don't cut off, and say, come back tomorrow or come back next week. I'm in the business. It's not a great business model. I like to see people once and send them on their way. But sometimes, if it takes 2 hours, it takes 2 hours. But, what's possible now on the other side of this, personally, you get peace. You get this vibration of possibility. You get to, but more importantly, you get to experience the contrast of life, right? You get to experience, oh, I didn't like that. Oh, I do like that. And now your frequency is with something new. And now you get, so, what life is all about, right? When we are in distress, we've got this leaky energy, or, you're dealing with some typical grief or resentment or shame or anxiety, panic attacks, right? You don't get to experience the contrasts of life and fully live that human experience. So, you get this now, you have this restored nervous system, and that promotes health with all of your systems working. And then, professionally, you have opened up that hose, you've unkinked it, where creativity and strategic thinking are available to you, as is joy and love, and really just being fully resourced. It's like taking off a dark pair of glasses and sitting back into the experience where you can use all of your skills, right? You're born with them, natural talents, and let them run free and really work at their full capacity.
Wow. That sounds like fun.
Yeah.
I mean, when you said you restore peace, I mean, first of all, that alone makes you, I need to look into it, right? Like everybody deserves to have a peaceful life, and everybody deserves to have inner peace. And I think that inner turmoil that a lot of us walk around with, is stifling our creativity, is stifling our joy. And also, I think it changes our lens of how we see things. Instead of seeing possibilities and opportunities, right? We see deficit, and we see closed doors, and we see boundaries and obstacles. So I love how, kind of changing that and really getting to the root can bring so much peace and joy into your life.
Yes, absolutely.
So I know that you've also expanded your work beyond individuals. You've launched a corporate program in 2025. How are you now
Mhm.
applying these energy principles to teams and organizations to prevent burnout at the systemic level?
Well, at the core of my corporate programs is mindset and mindfulness training. And we've talked about how what's going on in your inner mind can greatly affect your experience in your day-to-day life. And work, of course, is no exception to where things can get really screwed up and where bad relationships and lack of strategic or creative thinking, customer engagement can impact not just the employee's experience, but also the bottom line. So when I bring these programs into an organization, people first, they get really excited to learn how to make themselves more powerful and feel the sense of how the world can actually shift around them when they shift how their mind is operating. And let's face it, business is people, and your organization's human capital is the most important place to invest. Turnover, bad performance, quiet quitting. Leaders think their people aren't a match, and the people think their job isn't a match, when in fact, with the right mindset and that feeling of empowerment, it turns out that the job wasn't the problem, it was the perspective, right? Happy people, teamwork, customer satisfaction, best company reputation, not to mention, healthier employees are all possible thanks to mindfulness skills. I think it's one of the most important skills to empower your workforce with. It saves on benefits, it saves on human resource issues and
Yeah,
challenges, and you really are getting, it affects your brand and how the world sees your brand by the engagement with your people. It's really a great
absolutely.
place to
Absolutely.
be.
And
Mhm.
research shows productivity, right? We lose so much money in productivity because of burnout, because of, disgruntled employees, because of systemic issues, not human issues. We're humans are reacting right to it. And so I love that you're thinking about how do we start having this conversation and normalize the human experience and enhance it at work versus, kind of saying you're just not a good match for this environment.
Listen, my motto is when the team is stressed, the projects and the profits are a mess.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And all the research, workplace research shows that. So absolutely. So my final question, if our listeners could do one thing differently tomorrow to begin this evolution and stop the energy leak, what would you recommend?
Well, to remember what we talked about today, that your experience is just a blip in the way mind is processing information. It's not what's happening, it's not your situation, it's in the way your mind is processing information. So ask questions and let the answers come through. I hope this gives people a lot of power and a lot of hope. Because if we believe our problems are the cause and effect of, well, this happened and this happened, and I have to work with this person, and my partner does this, and my mother did that, or I engaged in something that we want to just keep saying it's because of something, then we in effect feel helpless or feel like there's no way out.
Yeah.
But when we recognize that our turmoil or our stuckness is simply because of a blip in the way mind is processing information, well, gee, then I can just clear that thing out and the whole world is open back up to me again. It should give you a lot of power. So, beginning with asking questions or using this tool like the loop locator, you're well on your way to that piece that you talked about as being right, the pinnacle of what we're looking for internally.
Yeah.
To be able to experience this human experience.
And I hear you say power, and I hear you say peace, and I'm like, how beautiful is it to know that there's an opportunity to become more powerful and to gain more peace. That alone, right? That alone should make everybody run to your website, which is
portablevisions.com. And
yes.
again,
and for the loop locator
is /gift.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Mary, this has been so insightful, and I really appreciate the time that you took to spend with us and to enlighten our listeners about the work that you're doing. Can they also find you and connect with you through the website that you just named?
Yes, absolutely. I'm also on LinkedIn, / Mary Petto. I'm on, the other ones too, Instagram. And very, very responsive. Engaging with people and answering questions gives me a tremendous amount of energy. So it would be hard not to find me.
Well, I appreciate your time. I know that our listeners are going to be looking up the loop locator, as I am, looking at where our energy is leaking and how we could become more powerful and find more peace. Thank you so much for your time, Mary. It's a pleasure having you on the Live Podcast.
I loved being here and talking to you. Thank you.